Hey, everybody. So, I had quite a conversation with a good friend of mine last night, and it made me reflect some more about what I'm trying to accomplish on this channel. My friend is one of those Christians who still supports Donald Trump, and I didn't talk him out of it last night. I think I made a little progress, but I want to do a better job, I realized, of reaching people like him on this channel. I know a lot of my listeners just don't even believe that a person can be a Christian and support Donald Trump. And I do understand why you say that. We've had those conversations, but I just can't deny my life experience. I have too many friends who are just like this guy to just write all of them off as like fake Christians, just because they support Donald Trump. I mean, it bothers me a lot, but I can't just write him off. By any outward measure, this guy is probably a better example of Jesus than I am. And he's lived a really sacrificial life, including living in several different countries in relative poverty as a missionary. And he was the type of missionary who was bringing practical help to the poor. And all I can say is, like, judging by his words and his actions over his whole lifetime, if he isn't a Christian, then nobody is a Christian. But yet he does support Donald Trump. And because I know that he's sincere, he doesn't make me angry when I talk to him the way a lot of Trump supporters do. The whole thing just makes me sad. I mean, he's not a MAGA cult member. His support for Trump has a lot more to do with his opposition to certain Democratic policies than his actual support for Trump. And he's not a fascist, not by any measure. But I did tell him last night that I think he's being used by fascists and that they're not worthy of his support. So again, it just made me think about what I'm trying to accomplish here with these videos and with the books that I write and all of that, because I'm taking steps over the next few weeks to start doing this work full time. So I think it's important as I'm doing that to clarify what this channel's about. And my main audience is people who already agree with me that Trump and MAGA pose a serious threat to the country. And more specifically, Trump and MAGA pose a serious threat to the Christians who support them. And I'm trying to help the people who agree with me about that to feel a little bit less alone. And I'm trying to articulate some things that I think need to be said. I want to give voice to the pain that so many of us feel when we see our friends and our family being corrupted by their association with the MAGA movement. And if nothing else, I want to create a record that when fascism came to America, wrapped in a flag and carrying a cross, a whole lot of us stood up and said, this is wrong. So I want to be on record for that. But I do also want to continue to reach out to people like my friend. I want to make arguments that someone like him might listen to. That's what I've tried to do for years, and I just want to keep trying to get better at that. So I want to make arguments that the rest of my listeners can adapt and use in your own circles of friends and family also. I have no interest in reasoning with like the people who really like Donald Trump. But I know so many people personally who really don't belong in the MAGA movement, and I think they're still reachable. So I don't want to forget about those people. And my conversation with my friend last night just showed me once again that Christians who support Trump often just still aren't hearing the other side. And it's shocking to me after all these years that we can have so much disagreement about basic facts. It's hard to believe, but the echo chambers really are a serious problem. And I try to avoid echo chambers in my own life. It's a serious problem, though. And I talked to him about that last night. I told him about the video that I made recently, a few days ago, about Dietrich Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity. How the problem that we're dealing with right now isn't so much an intellectual one, it's a moral one. Many Americans are ignorant because they're choosing to be ignorant. They're choosing not to even hear facts that might go against our beliefs. So, to my mind, that's a moral problem. It's a refusal to learn the truth if the truth is inconvenient. So, to me, that's actually kind of encouraging because something like that is fixable. If I want to convince someone that Trump is lying to them, for instance, I could spend hours trying to prove that with facts and sources, but they probably won't listen. But if I can appeal to their heart, to their conscience, then they just might decide to take the leap, and then they'll start seeking out the truth for themselves, and they'll find it because the truth is out there. So anyway, my friend and I got into it last night, and I'm not going to go through the whole conversation, but I want to share just one important part of it that I think is kind of helpful for thinking about this. He was sharing with me a couple of the policies that he agrees with Trump about and that he strongly disagrees with the Democrats about. And I get it. I mean, I hope someday that we can get back to having honest policy disputes, but we need to protect our democracy right now so that we can do those sorts of disputes. But I told him that right now, it doesn't matter what policies Trump might accidentally stumble into that my friend might agree with as a Christian. I said that if an orangutan was president, he might accidentally make a few decisions that a Christian might support. And I said that it's far more important right now that Trump's strategy of constant lies and disinformation is corrupting everyone who listens to him. Like, that's the important issue. And his response to that surprised me. His response was, name one lie. Name one actual lie that Trump has told. And honestly, I was really taken aback by that. I was kind of stunned. I've had people ask me that in the comments on these videos a lot. People who are trying to defend Trump. And I know that that's a strategy that a lot of Trump's propagandists in the media used. You know, they say that Trump doesn't lie and that people like me won't be able to answer that question. So it doesn't surprise me when people say that in the comments. And since I don't know those people personally, I just tend to write them off as like insincere buffoons and I ignore them. But I can't do that with my friend. I know this guy well enough to know that he wasn't being insincere. He truly thought that I wouldn't be able to come up with a true example of a lie that Donald Trump has told. And I actually kind of panicked inside for a second because I could think of 30,000 lies, but I needed to pick just one and talk about it. And it was a weird experience because we were in this loud, crowded bar. We were at an event with other friends and, you know, a celebration. And so I thought, how can I, in this setting, answer this without it turning into some kind of laundry list? So what I did, and this is like, you know, maybe one way to approach this. I think there's thousands of ways that we could approach these sorts of things because there's thousands of lies. But this is what I did. I decided to focus on Russia because my friend and I had had a long conversation over 5 years ago about Trump's connections to Russia. And so I picked one very provable lie that Trump told, like way back then. During the 2016 election, Trump denied having any business dealings with Russia, and he specifically denied having any talks with Russia about building a Trump Tower in Moscow. So that's just one narrow question, one narrow lie. But it was a big deal at the time. And Trump was adamant that he had no business connections to Russia. And then when the whole Russia thing blew up with the Mueller investigation and the first impeachment and everything, Trump kept using the phrase Russia hoax about 20 times every day. And what I think he was doing was basically hypnotizing his followers to hear the word hoax whenever they heard about Russia. And then when the Mueller report finally came out, he and his Republican enablers claimed again and again that the report had vindicated him, even though that's not what had happened. Now, I could have gone into all sorts of directions that, last night, trying to talk about all of that. But I just focused on that one lie about the Trump Tower in Moscow. Mueller's report made it clear that Trump had been negotiating with Russia on a Trump Tower during the 2016 election. And it was a huge deal, over $1 billion, if I remember right. And he'd even signed a letter of intent during the campaign. And they'd even talked about gifting Vladimir Putin a penthouse at the top of the tower. So that really happened. And Mueller wrote about all of that in his report. I mean, it was investigated. This is like the stuff that Mueller wrote is backed up with exhaustive facts. But once Trump was elected, he didn't follow through with that Trump Tower plan because it was unwise at that point. So the reason I brought up that specific lie is that it relates to what's happening today. 5 years ago, I sounded like a conspiracy theorist to my friend when I was talking to him about Trump and Russia. But now today, everything that I said that I was worried about has come to pass. I mean, now Donald Trump is aggressively and openly realigning the world order, and he's increasingly siding with Russia at the expense of our European allies. Europe doesn't trust us anymore. They're talking openly about that. This is in the news. They're talking out loud about it. And they're taking steps to pull back on sharing intelligence with us because they're losing trust. They're making plans for how to protect themselves if America's shift towards Russia continues. So, just like I talked about earlier this week, I shared these facts with my friend, and it followed this pattern that I laid out this week in that video about Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity. This pattern is first the denial, second the so what step, and then third the well, that's good. I want it to happen. So first, in this case last night, the denial. Name one lie that Trump has told. But then when I was able to do that in a calm way, the second step happened. It was the so what step. It was, well, so what? He never built the tower, so nothing happened. But I let him know that my point wasn't about the tower. It was about Trump lying about his relationship with Russia. And now that relationship is coming full bloom all these years later. Trump's lies do damage to our democracy, and they damage the conscience of all of his supporters who go along with them. But I was encouraged last night by this one thing. Once we talked about that stuff, my friend didn't jump to stage 3. He didn't jump to the, well, I'm glad it happened stage. He doesn't want the U.S. to align with Putin, and he didn't try to defend that, and that's a good thing. We've got some common ground here to work with. I think he's actually processing what we talked about. And sure, I mean, I didn't convince him in one conversation. I haven't been able to convince him in 5 or 6 years of talking about this, but we were still able to have the conversation. And the facts of the case still mattered, and that's encouraging to me. So how does that relate to this channel? So as I start to get more time for this channel, I want to do more videos where I answer people's questions. Instead of thinking that everyone who leaves an irritating response in the comments is just trolling me, maybe I should treat some of those questions like they're coming from someone sincere. I should just answer them, I guess, for 2 reasons. First, because they might be sincere, but second, because even if they're not, I think it'll help all of us to think about how we can respond if a friend or a family member asks us questions like that. I mean, it's frustrating. As frustrating as it can be to hear those sorts of things from our loved ones, I just don't think we should give up on trying to speak the truth when we're given the opportunity, as long as they're being sincere. And that's the key. My friend is sincere. He's not taking in the same information I am, but he's sincere, so I'm not going to give up. So I hope that I can help others to have a ready response to the questions that sincere people ask them. And again, I have no time to talk to people who are not being sincere about this stuff. But if somebody really is asking and they want a response, I want to help prepare to answer that sort of stuff. So my plan is to post a video every once in a while that I'll mix in with my others that I'm just going to label as like my response. And then I'll share the question or the comment that I'm responding to, and then I'll respond. So I've done this a few times. If you've been around here a while, you've seen this sort of video from me. But now that I'm freeing up some more time, I just hope to do a lot more of that. And I hope that you find it helpful. So thanks for listening.